Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Welcome to the 12th lecture of MTH 108 Business Math 1. Today we will start our 6th chapter, which is about quadratic and polynomial functions. What are the objectives of the chapter? Generally, to introduce the reader to nonlinear functions. More specifically, provide an understanding of the algebraic and graphical characteristics of quadratic and polynomial functions, and to illustrate a variety of applications of these types of functions. But before starting our next chapter, first we will review what we have done in our previous chapter, that was about linear functions and the applications. In our previous chapter, we have studied linear functions of one variable, of two variables, with the examples of weekly salary function, and then we have generalized the definition up to n independent variables. Then, in terms of applications, we have studied the revenue function, linear revenue function, linear cost function, and using these two functions we have defined our linear profit function. Then we have also studied our demand function and supply function, both were linear, and using these two functions we have defined the market equilibrium. Further, what we have studied is the break-even point with graphical representation, and we have observed that the market equilibrium, and we have observed in one example that we were asked to find the 0.0 profit, which is nothing but to find the break-even point. Maybe you have found these examples a bit difficult, but they are very related to our daily life examples, particularly in economics. Okay, today we will start our 6th chapter about the quadratic functions, and mainly what we will study today about the quadratic functions, their characteristics, and the graphical representation. So, why we need quadratic functions? If you recall our previous lectures, we have already studied the quadratic functions, especially in our chapter 4. Now, quadratic functions are basically nonlinear functions, if you recall the definition. And so far we have only focused on the linear and nonlinear mathematics. And what we have found that linear mathematics is very useful and convenient. In chapter 5 we have discussed the linear functions, and system of equations were also linear in two variables. So far we have done everything in the form of linear equations or linear functions. But there are many phenomena which do not behave in a linear manner, or we cannot approximate them by using the linear functions. So, what to do with these phenomena, which are basically real world problems? We cannot leave them aside. We have to introduce the nonlinear functions to deal with these real world problems. And when we have decided that we have to deal with the nonlinear functions, then the more common nonlinear functions are the quadratic functions. Just one step more from the linear functions. Okay, so we define mathematically what do we mean by the quadratic functions. We have already defined them in our chapter 4, but for the sake of simplicity we will recall the definition that a quadratic function involving one independent variable x and the dependent variable y has the general form y is equals to f of x, where y is the dependent variable and x is the independent variable. And what will be the equation? The equation will be ax square plus bx plus c. Definitely there will be some condition on a, b and c, where a, b and c are constants. And is this enough, or is this all we need to define our quadratic function? No, we further need one more condition, that our constant a should be different from 0. That is, the coefficient of x square, or the coefficient of the highest degree, that is x square, should be different from 0. So this is how we define our quadratic function, and the general form is ax square plus bx plus c, where a, b, c are constants and the coefficient of x square, which is a here, should be different from 0. Now we observe that the coefficient of x square cannot be equals to 0, that is, a cannot be equals to 0, because if a is equals to 0, what will happen? The guess is, if there is any some guess that what will happen when a will be equals to 0. Okay, let's see. We put the value of a is equals to 0 in our general form, and our function or the equation y is equals to f of x reduces to what? A is equals to 0. We are left with bx plus c, and we can recognize this equation or this function. It is a linear function with independent variable x and dependent variable y. So if we allow the coefficient of x square equal to be 0, then we have reduced our function, our quadratic function, to the linear function. And now we are no more dealing our real world problem with the linear function, because that problem cannot be approximated by using the linear function. We have to deal with the quadratic function. So the coefficient of x square should be different from 0. Now let's have a look at some examples. Then we have some condition that as long as the coefficient a is different from 0, then the other coefficients b and c can take any value. We have only one restriction on the coefficient, that a should be different from 0. There is no condition on the other two coefficients b and c. They can take any value. What do we mean by this? For example, we have our function y is equals to f of x, which is equals to 5x square, and we are asked to identify that is the given function a quadratic function or not. Then what we will do? We will simply compare our given function with the general form of the quadratic function. We can write the general form here again, which is ax square plus bx plus c, and a different from 0. Now if we compare our given function 5x square with the general form, what do we obtain? We basically obtain y is equals to 5x square plus 0x plus 0, which means that by comparing we obtain that a is equals to 5, b is equals to c, which is equals to 0. So the given function has the coefficient of x square a equals to 5, which is different from 0. So our given function is a quadratic function. If we read our first sentence, that as long as a is different from 0, as in this case that a is equals to 5, which is different from 0, b and c can take any value. In this example we can see that b and c both are equals to 0, and still the given function is a quadratic function. So it is a quadratic function. Now, first we will see some examples of the functions which are either quadratic or not by comparing them with the general form. Let us consider another example. We have a function u equals to f of v given as minus 10 v square minus 6. Okay. We can write u as minus 10 v square plus 0v minus 6, and if we compare it with the general form, we have a is equals to minus 10, b is equals to 0, c is equals to minus 6. Since a is different from 0, the given function is an example of a quadratic function. So again we have an example of a quadratic function. Quadratic function. In this example, b is equals to 0, but c is also different from 0, which is minus 6. Okay. Third example is we have y is equals to f of x, which is equals to 7x minus 2. And if we recall our previous lectures, then we can immediately tell the answer of this given function, that is the given function a quadratic function or not. But let us compare the coefficients with the general form and see what answer we get. We can write our y as 0x square plus 7x minus 2. And comparing it with the general form, we obtain that the coefficient of x square, which was a, is equals to 0, b is equals to 7, c is equals to minus 2. So what do we get? The answer is the given function quadratic or not? Well, if you say that the given function is quadratic, then you are wrong. The given function is not a quadratic function because the coefficient of x square, which is a, is equals to 0 here, and the coefficient of x square cannot take the value 0 according to the definition. And we have already said that if the coefficient take the value equals to 0, what happens? Then we are reduced to a linear function. So this is basically a linear function 7x minus 2 and not a quadratic function. Not a quadratic function, but it is in fact a linear function. A linear function. So we have seen 3 examples of functions, where the first 2 examples were of quadratic function. In the third example, we have seen that the given function is not a quadratic function. Okay, let's see some more examples. We have our function g in terms of h defined as minus 6. Okay, some of you has already given the answer that the given function is a quadratic function or not. If it is a quadratic function, then y, and if it is not, then why it is not a quadratic function. Some of you can easily recognize that what type of function it is, but we will solve it in detail. Now we can write g as 0 h square plus 0 into h minus 6. Okay, and by comparing it with the general form, we obtain that a is equals to 0, b is equals to 0, c is equals to minus 6. And since the coefficient of h square is 0, so the given function is not a quadratic function. Then can you give the name of the function if it is not a quadratic function? A is equals to 0, b is equals to 0, and if you look closely, the value of c constant is minus 6. So this type of function is a constant function, which we have discussed in our chapter 4. So what is the conclusion? That it is not a quadratic function, but in fact it is a constant function. Okay, one more example. We have our y equals to f of x defined as x square plus 10x. Again, we will compare our coefficients with the general form. So we can rewrite our given function y as x square plus 10x plus 0. Okay, comparing, we obtain a is equals to 1, b is equals to 10, and c is equals to 0. Since the coefficient of x square is different from 0, the given function is an example of a quadratic function. And two more examples to make it clear that what type of functions are basically quadratic functions and what type of functions are not. We consider our function y defined in terms of x as 6x square minus 40x plus 15. Now by comparing, our a is equals to 6, b is equals to minus 40, and c is equals to 15. So the coefficient is different from 0, which is 6, and we can immediately see that the given function is a quadratic function. One more example. We have our y defined as 2x cube plus 4x square minus 2x plus 5. The given function is containing all the powers of x. By comparing, we obtain a is equals to 2 or 4, and we have a question mark. We have to decide what is the value of a, or what is the coefficient of x square. Okay, let's come to the coefficients of x and the constant c. Coefficient of x is 2. No, it is minus 2. We have constant c is equals to 5. Okay. Those of you saying that the coefficient of x square a is equals to 2 are wrong. A is actually equals to 4 here, which means that the coefficient of x square is different from 0 and the given function is a quadratic function. No, the given function is not a quadratic function, because we have one more term which is in terms of x cube, and the coefficient, let's say d, of x cube is equals to 2, and the quadratic functions are defined as those functions which have highest power of the variable equals to 2, maximum 2. That is, in this case, the highest power of the independent variable x is equals to 3. So the given function is not a quadratic function. Okay. And is there any other name of the given function? Yes, the given function is actually a cubic function, and we have also studied the cubic functions in our chapter 4, where we have studied the types of functions. So this is basically a cubic function. So now we have seen 7 examples of functions, and we have identified that which of them are the quadratic functions and which of them are not, and why they are not quadratic functions. The main reason is that either the coefficient of x square is 0, then we reduce to linear functions, or the highest power of the independent variable is greater than 2. For example, in our 7th example, which is a case of cubic function. We have also seen that when a is different from 0, that is, the coefficient of x square is different from 0, then there is no further condition on the constants b and c. Both of them can be 0 at the same time. Our first example, here both of them are 0 at the same time. Only one can be 0 at a time. For example, our second example, here the constant b is equals to 0 and c is different from 0, or the constant c can be equals to 0 at a time, which is our example 5, where c is equals to 0 and b is different from 0, or both can be different from 0, which is our example 6. Here both the constants b and c are different from 0. Okay. Now we have seen that given a function, how we can identify that is the given function a quadratic function or not. Okay. If we recall the definition of quadratic function from our chapter 4, there the general form of the quadratic function was given as y is equals to f of x, which is equals to a2x square plus a1x plus a naught, with the condition that a2 is different from 0. And here we have given our general form as y is equals to f of x, which is equals to ax square plus bx plus c, with the condition that a is different from 0. So a question arises that are these two different general forms of a quadratic function or the same forms? Actually, both the general forms are definitely equal, and what we have done, we have only renamed the constants. In the general form of chapter 4, the constants were a2, a1 and a0, with the condition that a2 is different from 0, and In this chapter we have given the general form with the constants a, b and c, and the same condition that the coefficient of x square or the constant appearing with x square is different from 0. So we have only renamed our constants from a2 to a, a1 to b and a0 to c. It depends on you, whichever the way you feel comfortable, to remember the general form of the quadratic function. That is, we have renamed a2 to a, a1 to b and a0 to c. And you can remember the general form of the definition in either form, with a2, a0, a1 or with a, b, c. The only condition you have to remember is that the constant appearing with the highest power of the independent variable x square should be different from 0, and the only highest power should be x square. X greater than 2 it will not be allowed. Okay, now we have done enough explanation of the quadratic functions and the examples of the quadratic functions. Now we will see that how we can represent our quadratic functions graphically. If you recall the case of linear functions, then the graph of linear functions is always a straight line. So what would be the guess about the graph of the quadratic functions? Will it be a straight line or a curve? If the answer is that the graph of a quadratic function is also a straight line, then the answer is no. Because then how we can identify that the straight line is representing which function? Linear function or a quadratic function? So we are left with only second possibility, that the graph of a quadratic function will be a curve and not a straight line. Okay. Then all quadratic functions have graphs as curves, and these curves has a special name called the parabolas. Okay. For example, consider the function y is equals to x square. It is a quadratic function with a equals to 1 and b equals to c equals to 0. Now clearly a is different from 0. It is an example of a quadratic function, a simplest one, with b and c equals to 0. So the question is how we can represent this function graphically. We have also done this before in our chapter 4. If you recall our chapter 4, in chapter 4 we have represented our functions graphically, including there was one example of a quadratic function and one example of a cubic function. So let's recall what we have done there. Our given function is y is equals to x square, and what we have done there, we have plotted the graph by taking the particular values of our independent variable and the corresponding values of the dependent variable y. That is, when let's say x is equals to 0, y is equals to 0, when x is 1, y is 1, when x is 2, y is 4, when x is 3, y is equals to 8, and so on. And now again we have to take some negative values. When x is equals to minus 1, y will be equals to 1. When x is equals to minus 2, y will be equals to 4. For the value of minus 3, y is equals to 9. Here it should be 9. 3 square is 9. Okay. Now we have to plot our function. Before plotting the function, if I ask you that what would be the domain of this function and the range of this function, then can you find the domain and the range of this given function? Yes, it is very easy. The domain of this function is our whole real line. That is this whole real line. Oops, with 0 here, positive values, so on, and with some negative values, and so on. All the values from the real line define the function very well. So there's no problem in defining the domain of the function. Can you find the range of this function? If we look at the values of x and the corresponding values of y, what do we mean by the range of the function? Basically, that the output with respect to the given input. The given input is the whole real line, and the output, if we look closely, when input is 0, the output is 0. When input is the set of positive values, the output is again positive. Okay, when input is positive, the output is positive. When input is the set of negative values, that is, we are taking the values of x from here, the output is again positive. So the range of this function is the whole real line? No, the range of this function is all positive real numbers, which we denote by r plus as a superscript, or we can say all positive reals. That is, no matter the value of x, the input we give to our function, the output will always be positive. Okay, now we come back to the graph of our simplest quadratic function y is equals to x square. When x is 0, y is 0. When x is 1, y is 1. X is 2, y is 4. X is 3, y is 9, the positive values. And same with the negative values, x is minus 1, y is 1. X is minus 2, y is 4, minus 3, and 9. And then we will join these points, and this point origin is also included. We will join these points and we obtain the graph of our quadratic function. Okay, since I have said that the range of this function is all positive reals, clearly the graph shows that graph lies above the x-axis. That is, only the positive values of y are the possible outputs. There is no negative value, no output is coming on this negative y-axis. So the range of this quadratic function is all positive reals, and the domain is the whole real line. So this is how we plot our quadratic function, or give the graph of our quadratic function, by taking some particular values depending upon the domain. Here the domain was whole real line, so we have considered some positive values as well as the negative values to get an idea how the function behaves. Okay, and as we have said that we can also see that this graph is definitely not a straight line. It may be straight line on some small patches. For example, here, 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 on very small patches it may be a straight line, but when we collect all these patches, the graph is no more a straight line. In fact, it is a curve. It has some curve when it passes through the origin. Okay, and this curve is called as parabola. This is the graph of y is equals to x square and called as parabola. If I ask you that is the given graph a function or not, then how we can tell from the graph of some rule that is the graph of a rule is basically a graph of a function or not? We can use our test, which is known as the vertical line test. And what does the vertical line test say? The test says that if a vertical line passes the graph only at one point, then the given graph is a graph of a function, and if the vertical line passes the graph at more than one point, then the given graph is only the graph of some rule. With the help of vertical line test, we can see that any vertical line passes the graph only at one point. So the given graph is a graph of a function, namely the quadratic function y is equals to x square. Now we have some properties of parabola, in particular some properties of the graph of a quadratic function. We say that a parabola which opens upward is said to be concave up. A parabola which opens downward is said to be concave down. And the point at which a parabola either bottoms out or peaks out is called the vertex of the parabola. Let's see with the help of a graph that what do we mean by the terms concave up, concave down and vertex of the parabola. For example, we have our graph, we have our curve like this, which is a parabola. Okay, now a parabola which opens upward. Now this graph is open from the upside. So this type of parabola is called concave up. This is open from the top basically, and it is closed from the bottom. So this type of parabola is called concave up. Okay, and once we understand what do we mean by the concave up parabola, we can easily tell and imagine that what would be the graph of a parabola which is concave down, that is which is open from the bottom. And then some parabola should be like this. So this is a graph of a quadratic function called a parabola, and it is open from the bottom. It is closed from the top and open from the bottom. So this type of parabola is called concave down. There is an easy way to remember this concave up or concave down is consider this concave up as a cup or a bowl. A bowl is, the base of the bowl is basically a parabola with concave up. That is, the top of the bowl is open and the base is a slight round. And concave down is if you put your bowl upside down or your cup upside down, then the shape will be somewhat like this, or like a speed breaker, which is closed from the top and open from the bottom. So these type of curves we can distinguish by from which side they are closed. If they are closed from bottom, they are concave up, or if they are open from top, they are concave up. If they are open from bottom, they are concave down. There was one thing more, which was about the vertex of the parabola. Vertex is a point on the curve on the parabola at which a parabola either bottoms out or peaks out. That is, in short words, vertex of a parabola is a point where it changes its direction. That is this slightest curve. That is this slightest curve and the point from where the parabola is changing its direction. And in the case of concave down, this is the point from where the parabola is changing its direction. So these points are called as the vertex of the parabola. Okay, now we are interested in finding the vertex of the parabola. If we are given a quadratic function of the general form, we should recall our general form, which is y is equals to f of x equals to ax square plus bx plus c. We are given a quadratic function in a general form. Then, since we have said that vertex is a point on the parabola, it is our graph, it is our parabola, and it is this point. And this point must have some coordinates, x coordinate and y coordinate. We can represent this point in our rectangular coordinate system, which we have done in our chapter 1. So recall all what we have done in our chapter 1, that how we can represent our point in our rectangular coordinate axis. So we are interested in finding the coordinates of this point or the coordinates of the vertex. That is, we are interested in finding, let's say, x naught and y naught, the points on our rectangular coordinates, that is the value of x and the value of y, which represent the vertex. This we can find with the help of our formula, that this vertex is basically defined as the x component will be equals to minus b over 2a, and the y component is 4ac minus b square over 4a, where what are a, b, c? A, b, c are just the constants of our quadratic function, where a, b, c are parameters or constants of our general form of the quadratic function. So with the help of this formula, we can find the point vertex of our parabola. For example, we consider our simplest parabola y is equals to x square, which we have just plotted in our previous slides. Writing it in our general form, we have x square plus, what is the constant coming with x? It's 0, x plus 0, which means that a is equals to 1 and both b and c are equals to 0. If we look at our first example of the quadratic function, it was more or less the same. Y is equals to 5x square, where both b and c are 0 and a was different from 0. Okay. Now, if we are interested in finding the vertex of this parabola, we will simply put the values of a, b and c in our formula, and we obtain the vertex x naught y naught is equals to minus b, which is 0, minus 0 over 2 into a is 1, minus 4ac, which is 0 now, b square 0 over 4, which is basically equals to 0, 0. So the point where the parabola changes its direction is basically the origin for this simplest quadratic equation. That is, the point is this. This is the vertex. The origin is the vertex in this case. It should be like this, and we may omit this side. Okay, so we have seen three new things so far about the graph of a quadratic function. That the graph of a quadratic function is always a curve and not a straight line, and that curve is called a parabola. And the three properties of parabola: that when the parabola is concave up, when it is concave down, and what do we mean by the vertex of a parabola, that which point on the graph is basically represents the vertex. Now we have one more thing to know about the parabola, that a parabola is a curve having a particular symmetry. Okay, what do we mean by the symmetry? That it is same or following a same pattern. The line which passes through the vertex is called the axis of symmetry. Okay, for this we have to draw our parabola. Let's say this is our parabola. What is the vertex in this case? The vertex is our origin. Is origin. And is the given parabola concave up or concave down? The graph tells us that the given parabola is concave up because it is open from the top. It is concave up, and okay, and further information we have that the line which passes through the vertex is called the axis of symmetry. In this case, if we look closely, y-axis, this y-axis passing through our vertex, that is this line, this y-axis is passing through the vertex, passing through that particular point which is origin here. This line is the axis of symmetry, or we may write as axis of symmetry in this particular case. Okay, then what does the axis of symmetry do basically? The first point says that a parabola is a curve having a particular symmetry. The parabola has an axis of symmetry. What does this axis of symmetry do? That if we look closely at the right side of the axis of symmetry and on the left side, the graph is exactly the same. That is, this axis of symmetry or this line separates the parabola in two equal halves. The type of graph or curve which is represented or shown on the right side of the axis of symmetry will be the exact mirror image on the left side of the axis of symmetry. To understand it more clearly, let us consider a graph. Let's say no, not this one. Draw one more. A graph, let's say, which is like this. This is a curve, graph of a quadratic function, namely parabola. And is it concave up or down? It is open from the bottom, so it is concave down. Okay, what is the x? What is the vertex in this graph? The vertex will now be the point where the graph changes its direction. So this point will be the vertex. Okay, and now we are interested in the line which is passing through the vertex, that is passing through this point, which means that this line is passing through the vertex, and this line is basically giving us the mirror image on both the sides. The type of parabola given on the left side of the axis of symmetry is exactly the same on the right side of the axis of symmetry. Well, this is not very well drawn, but if we plot it on a graph paper or very accurately or with some software, then from the axis of symmetry, if we fold our paper, then both the lines intersect each other throughout. That is, this line is exactly the same as this line, and this axis of symmetry is separating the parabola into equal halves. Both sides are actually the mirror image of each other. And this is our axis of symmetry in this case. Now we have studied 4 properties of parabolas: when they are concave up, when they are concave down, what is the vertex of a parabola, what do we mean by the symmetry in terms of the axis of symmetry. Now we are interested in sketching of a parabola, or particularly in a sketch of a graph of a quadratic function, which is a parabola. Now parabolas can be sketched by using the method of chapter 4, that is, we take some values of the input. If the domain is the whole real line, some positive values, some negative values, and we look at the values of the corresponding output and we plot them on the graph. But there are certain things which can make the sketching of our parabola relatively easy, and these certain things are the concavity of the parabola, that is, if we know the concavity of our parabola, that is it concave up or down, the intercepts of the parabola, which includes both x-intercept and y-intercept, and the vertex of the parabola. Knowing these 4 things, we can sketch our parabola very easily as compared to by taking some set of values, by putting the values of x and then solving the function for the values of y. So we will see that how we can find the concavity, the intercepts and the vertex of the parabola. This middle part, which is the intercept one, the y-intercept and x-intercept, we have already done this in our second chapter. We have solved them in detail, that what do we mean by the y-intercept, what do we mean by the x-intercept, and how we can find these intercepts. But here we will do it again. Okay, first we will see what do we mean by the concavity and how we can find the concavity of our parabola. So concavity of a parabola, when a function is given in the general form, can be determined by the sign of the coefficient on the x square term. We can recall the general form of our quadratic function, which is ax square plus bx plus c, a different from 0. Okay, what we are saying is that by knowing the sign of the coefficient on the x square term, that is by knowing the sign of this a, we can tell that if the given parabola is concave up or concave down. Now if our a is positive, the graph, the function, writing the function in a short form, the function will graph as parabola which is concave up. Simply by knowing the sign of this constant a, we can tell easily that is the given parabola concave up or concave down. So simple. Okay, now the second, for the case of concave down, if this is negative, less than 0, the graph of the function will be a parabola which is concave down. Okay, and what happens when a is equals to 0? Then the given function will not be a quadratic function. See, here I have written a is different from 0. If a is equals to 0 is not allowed. Okay. For example, consider a function y is equals to x square. What is the coefficient of x square here? A is equals to 1. Is it positive or negative? Clearly it is positive. Then the graph of this function will be concave up. That is open from top. Okay, y is equals to minus x square is a quadratic function with a equals to minus 1, which is negative. So the graph will be equals to here. So this will be our parabola which is concave down, that is it is open from the bottom. Concave up and concave down. Okay. So simply by looking at the sign of the constant a or the coefficient of the x square term, we can easily identify that the graph will be concave up or concave down. Now we come to the intercepts. No, first we will solve some examples and then we will come to the intercepts. Okay, we will consider 4 examples. These examples are basically the examples of a quadratic function which we have identified from our previous slides. Our first function was y is equals to f of x is equals to 5x square. If we look back at our previous slides where we have done the examples of quadratic functions, this was an example of a quadratic function with a equals to 5 and b and c equals to 0. But to find the concavity, we are only interested in a. Here a is equals to 5, which is positive. So the parabola will be concave up. Second example was u is equals to minus 10v square minus 6. What is a here? A is equals to minus 10, which is negative. So in this case the graph will be concave down. Okay. Fourth example of the quadratic function which we have identified in our previous examples was y is equals to, it is third example, x square plus 10x. Identifying a is equals to 1, which is positive, the graph will be concave up. And the fourth example which we have identified previously was y is equals to 6x square minus 40x plus 15. What is the value of a here? A is equals to 6, positive, and graph will be concave up. So just by looking at the quadratic function, we can tell that will the graph of the function will be concave up or down, or what type of parabola will be the graph of the function, open from top or open from bottom. Now we come to the second point, which is about the intercepts of a parabola. First we will talk about the y-intercept. If we recall from our second chapter that the y-intercept of a function is a point at which the graph intersects the y-axis, very clear, in particular when x is equals to 0. Okay. If we are given the general form of the quadratic function, y is equals to ax square plus bx plus c, then what will be the y-intercept of this quadratic function? That is the point at which this equation ax square plus bx plus c intersects the y-axis, or in particular when x is equals to 0. So by putting the value of x is equals to 0 in our general form, we obtain y is equals to 0x square is 0 plus 0 x is equals to 0 and plus c. So we obtain basically y is equals to c. Okay, so our y-intercept will be equals to x is 0 and the value of y is equals to c. So for the case of quadratic function, we can also find the y-intercept very easily. It is the same process as we have done for the case of linear equation in our second chapter. For the quadratic function or quadratic equation, the concept of y-intercept is the same. That is the point where the function intersects the y-axis, which means that the point where x is equals to 0. And how we can find our y-intercept? Simply by putting the value of x is equals to 0 in our general form or the given quadratic function, and we obtain the value of y, a constant, which is equals to c here. Okay, so to find the y-intercept is very simple. Now let's come back to our 4 examples of quadratic functions which we have identified from the initial examples, and let's calculate the y-intercept of these examples. The first one is y is equals to 5x square, and we are interested in finding the y-intercept of this quadratic function. So what is the procedure? Simply put the value of x is equals to 0 in the given function. We obtain y is equals to 5 into 0 square, which is 0. So the value of y is also equals to 0. So in this case our y-intercept is x is definitely 0 and y is also 0. So the y-intercept is basically the origin. The graph crosses the y-axis at the origin. That is this is our graph, and it is intersecting the y-axis at the origin. Okay, our second example was u is equals to minus 10 v square minus 6, and we want to find the y-intercept of this quadratic function. Simple procedure, simply put v equals to 0 and solve for u. We obtain minus 10 into 0 minus 6, which is minus 6. So the y-intercept in this case is the point 0 and minus 6. That is what will be the graph roughly. If this is 0, our origin, and this is -6. So the graph will it be concave up or down? We have just solved these examples, and the graph is concave down because the coefficient of v square is negative and it intersects the y-axis at this point. So this is the graph of our given function. Okay, our fourth example, y is equals to x square plus 10x. Now by putting x is equals to 0, we obtain y is equals to 0 plus 0, and which is 0. So in this case our y-intercept is also the origin. So the y-intercept in this case is x is 0 and y is 0. That is, again the graph passes through the origin, and what will be the graph? Will it be concave up or down? Here a is 1, which is positive. It will be concave up, and it will be somewhat like this. Our fourth example was y equals to 6x square minus 40x plus 15, and we want to find the y-intercept. So we'll simply put x is equals to 0, and then what do we get? 6 into 0 minus 40 into 0 plus 50, which is equals to 50. So the y-intercept in this case, this is our y-intercept, and in this case our y-intercept will be 0. Clearly x should be equals to 0 and y is equals to 50. And what will be the graph in this case? Concave up or down? Clearly it is concave up, because here we have 6 as the coefficient of x square, which is positive, and it intersects the y-axis at when y is equals to 50, so somewhere here. So the graph will be this on the right side and the mirror image on the left side. So this is the graph of this function. Okay, now we are interested in finding the x-intercepts of our quadratic function. Same concept as with the case of y-intercept, that x-intercept of a quadratic function is a point at which the graph intersects the x-axis. In particular, when the value of y is equals to 0. If we are given our quadratic function in our general form, ax square plus bx plus c, then our x-intercept will be obtained when y is equals to 0, which means that basically our quadratic function ax square plus bx plus c is equals to 0. So in order to find the x-intercept of our quadratic function, we have to solve this quadratic equation. If we recall, this thing we have already done in our earlier lectures, particularly in the lectures of chapter 1. Now there are many methods to find the x-intercept of a quadratic function. The x-intercept may be one point, that is one point where the graph crosses the x-axis. It may be 2 points, or there may be no x-intercept. Okay, what do we mean by this? For example, we have our function, quadratic function like this, which is y equals to x square. Now here the graph crosses the x-intercept at the origin. So in this case the x-intercept is only a 1 point. Okay, if we have our graph like this, then in this case the graph crosses the x-axis at 2 points, namely at this point x1 and at this point x2. So in this case we have two intercepts, x1 0 and x2 0. It is also possible that the graph does not intersect the x-axis at all, and in that case we will obtain that there is no x-intercept. For example, if we have our graph like this, then it does not intersect the x-axis, it only intersects the y-axis. So in this case we have no x-intercept. So there are three possibilities of the x-intercept of a quadratic function: no intercept, one intercept, or two intercepts. Now the question is how we can find these intercepts if they exist. The x-intercept of a quadratic function or a quadratic equation is determined by finding the roots of an equation. I have already said that we are reduced to our equation ax square plus bx plus c is equals to 0, and to find the x-intercepts of our quadratic equation we have to find the roots of our equation, that is the values of x which satisfy this equation. And we have already done this in our chapter 1, where we have solved our second degree equations. In second degree equations we have found the roots or the solution set of our second degree equation by two methods. First method was by factorization, by factoring our quadratic equation, or by using the quadratic formula. Okay, we will revise both the methods here again. What were these methods? If a quadratic equation can be factored, then it is an easy way to find the roots, that we can find the factors of our given quadratic equation. Then we will avoid our quadratic formula. If you remember the lecture of this finding the roots of a second degree equation, either we use the factorization method or the quadratic formula. The roots were the same. So just for our simplicity, if the factors are easily available, can be found, then we will use our factorization formula. Okay, for example, we have y is equals to 6x square minus 2x. Then we are interested in finding the x-intercepts of this equation, and how we can find the x-intercepts? By simply finding the roots of this equation, that is roots of the equation 6x square minus 2x is equals to 0. In this case we can see that we can find the factors of this equation. How? If we take 2x common, we obtain 3x minus 1 is equals to 0. We have a product of two terms equals to 0, which means that 2x is equals to 0 and 3x minus 1 is equals to 0. Further simplifying, since 2 cannot be equals to 0, we obtain x is equals to 0 and x is equals to 1 by 3. So our x-intercepts are 0 and 0. One intercept is the origin and the other intercept is 1 by 3 and 0. So in this case we have found two roots of an equation, telling us that the given quadratic function has two x-intercepts. Okay, if we want to plot this function, one intercept is origin. One is this one, 1 by 3, 0. Okay. Now, is the given quadratic function concave up or concave down? Here we have a is equals to 6, which is positive. So, the given quadratic function is concave up, passing through the origin and passing through the second x-intercept 1 by 3, 0. So, in this case we have found the x-intercept by using the factorization method. Let us look at one more example. X square plus 6x plus 9 equals to 0. These things are not new to you because we have already solved them. Now, can we factor this equation? Yes, of course, we can factor it by x square plus 3x plus 3x plus 9 equals to 0. Taking x common, x plus 3 and 3 common from the last two terms, x plus 3 equals to 0. We obtain x plus 3 into x plus 3 equals to 0. Again, the product of two terms is equals to 0, means x plus 3 is 0 and x plus 3 is equals to 0, and we obtain x is equals to minus 3, x is equals to minus 3, which means that here we have two values of x, two roots, but they are the same. So in this case, the given quadratic function or the equation has one x-intercept, namely minus 3, 0, and the graph will cross the x-axis at this point, minus 3, 0. So this is our x-intercept. Now, if we recall the factorization method, we have seen there that there are only three possibilities of the roots of a second degree equation or a quadratic equation, namely either the roots are two distinct real roots or one real root or no real root. And we have seen from two examples. In this example we have one real root. In the previous example we had two real roots, both distinct, and we are not considering the examples of no real root because we are only restricted to the functions which have domain from a real line or a subset of real line. Now we want to find the roots of our quadratic equation with the help of the quadratic formula, and the quadratic formula will always identify the real roots of an equation if any exist. Now the quadratic formula of an equation which has the general form, equation is our ax square plus bx plus c equals to 0 as the general form, and will be our quadratic formula will be equals to x equals to minus b plus minus b square minus 4ac under root divided by 2a. This is our quadratic formula where a, b and c are the constants of our quadratic equation. And here we have seen that we have three cases. First case is when the term in the under root, which is b square minus 4ac, is positive. We obtain two distinct real roots. Second case is when the term in the square root b square minus 4ac is equals to 0. We obtain one real root. And the third case is when the term in the square root is negative, that is less than 0, we obtain no real root. We want to solve one equation with the help of a quadratic formula to find the roots, or in this sense to find the x-intercepts. Suppose we have an equation x square minus x minus 5. In order to find the roots or the x-intercept, we can see that we cannot factorize this equation, or we cannot find the factors easily. Then in this case, to find the roots of our quadratic equation, we will use our quadratic formula. Then here a is equals to 1, b is equals to minus 1, and c is equals to minus 5. By putting the values in our quadratic formula, we obtain x is equals to minus b, b is also negative, 1, plus minus b square minus 4 a c under root divided by 2 into a, which is 1, and by simplifying we obtain divided by 2, 1 plus minus under root 21 over 2. So basically we obtain two roots. X is equals to 1 plus under root 21 over 2, and the second root is 1 minus under root 21 over 2. So the x-intercept is 1 plus under root 21 over 2, 0, and the x-intercept is 1 minus under root 21 over 2, 0. Okay, so these are the x-intercepts and these are the roots of our given quadratic function. Okay, let's look at one more example. We have x square minus x minus 3.75 as our function of x. Identifying a, b, c, we have a is equals to 1, b is equals to minus 1, c is equals to minus 3.75, and now putting the values in our formula, we have x is equals to 1, minus will cancel out from the value, plus minus b square is 1, minus 4 a c under root divided by 2 into a is 2. Simplifying, 1 plus minus 1 plus, here we obtain 15 divided by 2 under root 16, which is 1 plus minus 4 by 2. We obtain one value as 1 plus 4 by 2, second value as 1 minus 4 by 2. So 5 by 2 and minus 3 by 2 are the two roots of our given quadratic equation or second degree equation, and the x-intercepts in this case are 2, which are namely 5 by 2, 0, and minus 3 by 2, 0. Okay, and what will be the graph? Is it concave up or down? A is 1, positive, concave up. When y is 0, x is 5 by 2. When y is 0, x is minus 3 by 2. So this will be the graph of our quadratic function, a rough sketch. Okay, so far we have discussed the concavity, which is very simple to identify. Concavity of the parabola, y-intercept of a second degree equation, and x-intercept with the help of two method, by using the factorization method and by using the quadratic formula. The last thing which we need is the vertex of our parabola, which we will solve in our next lecture. So up to now we summarize what we have done today. We have identified the quadratic functions by looking at different examples. We have seen the graph of a quadratic function, which is always a curve known as the parabola, and the methods to sketch the graph of a parabola. We need four things to sketch the parabola: concavity, y-intercept, x-intercept, and vertex. We have seen the concavity, which is very simple to identify. We can directly identify the concavity from our quadratic function. Y-intercept, we have seen it is similar to find the y-intercept of a linear function. That is the point where the graph intersects the y-axis. That is the point where x is equals to 0. We have also seen that how we can find the x-intercept of our quadratic function. By x-intercept of a second degree equation, we mean that the point where the graph intersects the x-axis, that is the point where y is basically equals to 0. From the case of x-intercept, we have three possibilities. Either there is no x-intercept, that is the graph does not intersect the x-axis. One intercept, the graph intersects the x-axis only at one point. Or two x-intercepts, that is the graph intersects the x-axis at 2 points. And how we can find these intercepts? To find the intercepts, we basically have to solve our second degree equation, and the two famous methods to solve the second degree equation is by using the factorization method or by using the quadratic formula. If we can find the factors easily, we prefer to use the factorization method. Okay, in both the methods, either the factorization or the quadratic formula method, from both the methods there are three possibilities of the x-intercepts. That we find two x-intercepts which are both real and distinct, that is different from each other, or we find one x-intercept, a real value, or we find no intercept. From both the methods, we obtain the same roots of the equation or same x-intercepts. About the vertex of a parabola and to sketch the parabola, we will see in our next lecture. In our next lecture, we will also see some applications of quadratic functions. With this, we end our today's lecture. Hope the things were clear to you and much interesting. Allah Hafiz, student.